This is a story of the house built 164 Red Oak Drive. After a small kitchen fire that started by my cat, the insurance company gave me a equally small check. Not wishing to put the money back into a falling down modular home, I decided to build a new one. The only place to put it? In the driveway. So I contacted some tree people to cut down the trees around the driveway, and also to build the blocks up so that it was level and pour a concrete slab. They did an excellent job on removing the trees and tearing up the existing driveway for me. The only problem was they apparently had underestimated the bid. $5,000 that they originally told me when I was trying to price what everything was going to cost was an underbid, and they found they couldn't do the project for that. So I was left with no choice but to, after a month of them delaying me, find another contractor. Checking around, I found that the companies that could actually do it, their bid was about 4 times my initial cost. And so not only did I pay for cutting the trees down from one company, but then the other company, it was $20,000 just to get the slab poured. So from the time the project started to the time the second company came, and again, I only paid the first company just to drop the trees. I was the one that had to cut up everything to try and save some money. And there were a lot of trees. Also, one of the things I was going to try to do to save money was to rent a saw from Eagle Rental to cut up the driveway into square blocks. I tended to use the square blocks as a patio in the backyard and also as a pathway down to my buildings. The problem with this was the saw that they rented me was worn out and it wouldn't cut through the concrete. Running it on a weekend, by Monday they were there to tear up the rest of the concrete. Hiring a new company, they started out by digging trenches and putting the rebarb wire in for pouring the concrete, and definitely something you want a professional to do. They came out with a laser level to get the concrete poured just right. So first they had to do the footers, which was because of the 5-foot drop from the beginning of the house to the back part of the house. They had to do it in 3 different layers. This is the back porch area, which is done with 8-inch blocks, but the wall you're seeing there that he's not working on is 12-inch blocks. The entire second half of the house had to be 12-inch blocks, where you see them sticking out a little bit. That all has to be reinforced with rebarb and poured solid concrete. Then the rebarbs that you see sticking up are folded down, so when they pour the flat slab, all that is held together. Here the truck is coming in and pouring the cement into the rebarb and filling the holes of the concrete to make a solid pour. Another problem ran into here when the truck was backing out after he had done his job. He hit part of the wall and broke a corner section out, as you can see here. So they had to tear out that part of the wall and completely rebuild that again. It was an additional cost to me because the guy who had hired to do the blocks didn't have more blocks, and I had to go get them. Something that should have been reimbursed, but it was one of those things, in order to get it done in time, I didn't feel like fighting about it. One of the things I had to do here, where you have the hill running down and the water that would be raining down would pour into the garage, I had to make them slope like a V, from the downhill slope to the way the driveway coming out of the garage sloped, and then put a drain line in there. And here you can see the drain line and the way it slopes from both directions. This is the back porch area that is hollow underneath. That metal pan they would pour that with concrete. And there shows the little crawl space under the 5-foot by 16-foot back porch. Brought in all the plywood and framing materials, and we were ready to start construction. Framing went up pretty quickly. The first floor, no real issues. We brought in the trusses I ordered to hold the extra weight from the whole second floor. And we put them up and put the plywood up. And every day it rained. It's one of the rainiest seasons we had ever had. So I was very happy to get the roof on the downstairs section and get it closed in. I purchased an extremely large tarp that would cover the entire project, 50 foot by 50 foot, and was able to seal the place up because we had planned for over a year to go on vacation, and of course that fell right in the middle of this project because the project got started so late. Again, thanks to the original contractors that underbid their job and walked off. Here's the water line coming into the house, and it was all boxed off. Now we're starting on the second floor, framing it out. I hired a couple of friends of mine, Eddie, shown here, and Buddy, and they helped me with the putting up the framing. Used 2x6 walls so there would be extra insulation and keeping the place warm in the wintertime and cool in the summertime. Here we have the front porch built and the second story getting closed in. This is the bracing work showing the truss across the front porch. Now we got the poles up for the framing out for the upstairs porch. And I ordered the trusses. They were all brought in so we could put them up in one day. Something I hadn't counted on, though, the trusses are spaced 2 foot on center. The problem I had here was I had one person measuring 2 foot on center on one side and another person measuring 2 foot on center on the other side, which when you start out all things equal, that's fine, but if one person is constantly measuring maybe to the underside of a line and the other person is measuring to the overside of a line, as you move your way from one side to the other of this building, and it's 47 feet long, you find that the very last truss you put in is not quite the same on both sides. I wasn't off bad, but it was off by a couple of inches, and when you start putting all your plywood sheeting and stuff up above, it creates a little bit of an issue. Again, on the roof, I had a metal roof put on because what I studied was that it lasts the best. And I hired a company to come in and put that on. That's all they do is put metal roofs up so that it would be professionally done. Also, due to the height, I didn't have the equipment and the real ability to maneuver around up that high on the outside of that roof. When you're looking at the front side of this house and seeing how high it is, the back side is an additional 5 feet higher because of the slope of the ground and how high we had to build the level area up for the solid pour. I put all these driven nails into the concrete and then found out that code required that I have 5/8 inch bolts to hold that board on there for the stairs to attach to. I would have thought the 16 bolts that I had fired into the concrete would have been more than adequate to hold the back stairs up, but required code, we had to come back and put in the 5/8 inch bolts. A friend of mine I worked with at the hospital, electrician for the hospital, came and assisted me with doing all the wiring. His son, when I was with the police department, I worked at the middle school, and his son was a student there that I became friends with, and also was an electrician by the time I built this house. So him and his father both oversaw the wiring and assisted them with it. Again, all these different views are for follow-up purposes. I know exactly where all the wiring is for the plumbing is for wash machines and toilets and everything, so that if I ever decide to remodel or decide to put a nail in the wall, I know what I'm getting into. This is the back porch. glass door there is will go out onto a fire escape. It hasn't been built yet, and as of right now it's closed off until I get the fire escape in. This is a winch that I put in the front porch to haul stuff up, and I built it into the house to leave it so that it can help assist with bringing groceries and things up to the second floor. This is the washroom downstairs, plumbing running in. Showing where the bathroom and the washer and dryer will go. This is a control room in the downstairs garage area. This will all be closed in and become my photographic studio. But for code purposes, it has to be built like a garage. The plywood on the outside is extra thick. I've got 3/4 inch plywood rather than 1/2 inch, and also use 3/4 inch plywood on the inside. 6-inch walls. It assists in keeping the sound quality from bleeding in from the outside, because I'm going to be using it as a recording and a photographic studio. So there's only one window downstairs, and that's on the back porch in the washroom area. Getting the siding done, and I built the garage doors myself, and was looking at different places for getting the barn door hangers, and they were just incredibly expensive from Home Depot or Lowe's, and they were just the decorative type, not really made for the weight I was needing to carry. So I went to the Farm and Gardens tractor supply place and ordered the big barn door sliders for that. Back part of the house was so high we had to use this cherry picker to get up to the top and finish sealing everything up and getting the siding put on. The windows that you see there, I wanted a little bit bigger windows, but when I realized the weight and that they would each have to be slid up a ladder to put in from the outside, we ended up going with a smaller window size. This back porch area with all the windows is where my wife's art studio is. And the red stairways you see there lead up to the old double wide that's going to be removed. Getting the porch framed out with the railings, and built the front steps all by myself, which was a real pain trying to get the measurements. It's one of those things where you need about 6 hands, and checked on the coating on that and was told one thing, that all I needed was a couple of 8x16 flat blocks with a monument concrete block on it for holding the 4x4 posts. After I got it all built, the inspector came out and said, "Oh no, that has to be in solid concrete with attached by metal anchors." Very interesting, having to go back and redo that. All the ceiling and drywall I put up by myself. First time I'd done anything on that scale. bathroom, the purple drywall is mildew resistant, and I got it all done and realized that it was better if I were to use what is called cement hardy board in the bathtub area. I laid the hardy board on the floor, but also had to cut out the purple drywall I had and put hardy board in the place of that in the entire shower area, and before I tiled it. Again, this is the hallway down through the center of the house. This is where I had to take a board and brace each leg, dig out one leg at a time, putting in the concrete columns and putting steel rebarb into the ground and pouring it for each leg, then mounting it, and then moving to the next leg. Would have been much easier if I'd done that to begin with. Connecting the septic tank into the house, not realizing it, my plumber accidentally nicked the power lines that were run around the house to keep power to the old house while I was building a new house, which is another problem. I had come out and paid for the permit to have the dig permit, and all the utility companies were supposed to come out and see the area where I marked it, and if there was any problems with the power line, water lines, telephone lines, cable lines, anything like that, they were supposed to notify me. And they all gave the approval okay that there was no conflict. And as soon as they started digging for the slab, they hit all of them. So the power lines had to be, a whole new power line had to be laid down and around the house. And everything was fine, but we didn't realize that it had been nicked by the plumber when he was putting the line in there. And with all the rain we had, there was a slow arcing underground, and I kept smelling rubber burning and not knowing where it was coming from until suddenly my power in my house was only operating at half voltage. I had 110 on one leg and like 12 volts on the other. So called the power company. They had to pay to have a whole new line put in, and for the second time now. And here's Robert Bradley and his wife Susan. They doing the finals, hooking up. I built the wooden sink, got the extra large sink to put in there, and built the frame for it and everything. Mary wanted the open cabinets so that you can get to everything easily, did not want it closed in. I didn't like the idea at first, but after living with it, it's so much easier to get to everything and see what you need to order when you go food shopping. It's my security system. I put the cameras in completely surrounding the house, and this is mini splits that are in the front and back of the house for air conditioning and heat, and there's one large unit downstairs that keeps the whole downstairs heated or cooled. They work remarkably well, and you don't hear them. Oh, this is the old house. After we got everything cleaned out, just before we're getting ready, showing all the leaking from the roof, problems that I had, the problems it was causing in the floor where it was leaking, mildew all through this house. All the walls just leaked. Water ran under the house. It was like a sieve. The roof was so bad by the time we'd finally gotten out. What I thought was going to take me 1 year to build ended up being 2.5 years. And here we come in and take down the old place. This was February of 2017. We just moved into the new place and making quick work of the old place. I say quick work. It probably only took about 1 day's time to actually tear down and remove the house. But because of the rain and not being able to get the tractor and truck in and out for hauling the trash away, it took 2 months. But here we'll show the removal of the whole house in just a matter of about 5 minutes. Again, the rain during the building of this was a major problem. It rained the entire project. I would have to go out every morning before we started construction. After we closed in the second floor, before we had the roof on, it would rain and it would fill up 2 inches of water. That would have to be swept out every single day to keep it all dry. Again, before we closed in the walls, I had to take the sprayer and make sure the walls were dry and then spray them all with Clorox to kill any bacteria in the house. All the different delays and all were very expensive. Any other year and I wouldn't have had nearly the issues we had due to the rain that year. Of course, with any construction you go over budget. I expected a little bit over budget, but from the very start when it tripled the cost of doing the foundation, the overruns at every other step was not budgeted for. I had thought I could build it all with what I had in my 401k and have a little bit left over for building and getting my studio started. That did not pan out. I had 30 days from the day we moved in to start tearing this place down. And luckily a neighbor had this rig and was able to do it at a rate that I could afford and saved me months of tearing it down by hand. This, of course, all had to be removed before I could build the walkway down the side of the house for the studio, and or put in the fire escape. Here you see him loading the truck, and this was the problem with all the rain we were having, is because for the truck to get to the road, it had to drive over the water lines that supplied the water for the entire cul-de-sac. If the ground was too soft and he were to drive across and crush those water lines, it would have put everybody in the neighborhood out of water. So that's why the 2-month delay in getting trucks in to haul all this debris out. Probably could have done it by hand in the 2 months that it took to get him to do this, but it wouldn't have been nearly as easy. As soon as he got all this done, I was able to put the sidewalk way down the house and get the railings done and finish up the inside of the studio, which was followed a week later by a heart attack. So I'm very glad that, again, that I didn't tear this place down by hand. It may have never gotten the house finished. Eventually it was all removed, and here's the finished house with the walkway down the side to the side door, and don't have the fire escape in. That's why you have that door coming out to nowhere in the back part there, but we'll eventually get it. This is the first snowstorm, 2017.